Okay, we're back. I'll get right to it. The perpetual virginity of Mary.
Absolutely nothing's changed.
Catholics and other Christians not only believe that Mary was a virgin at the time of Jesus' conception and that her virginity remained intact while she gave birth to Jesus, but they also believe that Mary remained a virgin throughout her life, that Jesus was her only child. The primary problem, of course, for believers particularly, is that the New Testament continually speaks of Jesus' siblings. How do Catholics and other Christians who believe Mary remained a virgin throughout her life deal with this? Primarily in one of two ways. The first goes back to the Proto-Evangelium of James, which has a story in which Joseph is selected by the high priest to, quote, take into his keeping the Virgin of the Lord, that's Mary. How did the high priest know that Joseph was the guy for the job? Because, quote, a dove flew upon Joseph's head, unquote. I told you, the Proto-Evangelium of James is great reading. Anyway, Joseph protests the project, declaring, quote, I have children, and I am an old man. Problem solved. Joseph had children from another marriage, and these are the brothers and sisters of Jesus mentioned in the New Testament. This is why in Eastern Christian iconography, one often sees depictions of other children traveling with Mary and Joseph. The second approach, far more popular among Roman Catholics than their Eastern and Orthodox counterparts, is that these brothers and sisters are not siblings at all, but rather cousins or other relatives. As we often see with believers, if they don't like the meaning and or implication of a word that appears in their scriptures, they simply change its meaning to avoid the implication that troubles them. Once again, the idea of Mary's perpetual virginity caught on because of the newly positive assessment of virginity that began to grow up in various early Christian communities. Moreover, in 431 CE, the Council of Ephesus declared that Mary was Theotokos, or God-bearer, Mother of God, as it's more frequently expressed in the Western wing of the Church. After that, things really took off with respect to Mary's perpetual virginity. The idea here was that not just anyone gets to occupy the womb of the Mother of God. As a 4th century pope wrote, you were right in rejecting the idea that any other offspring should come from the same virginal womb from which Christ was born. The Church came to believe that Mary's perpetual virginity was integral to the uniqueness of Jesus. During the Middle Ages, as Father McBrien notes in Catholicism, as theology in the West had become increasingly divorced from the Bible, ideas such as the perpetual virginity of Mary began to be developed to an extremely high level of detail. And quite frankly, while in the last 40 years or so the Catholic Church has made various attempts to scale back some of the emphasis on Mary, it has gone much too far ever to eliminate any of the doctrines pertaining to her virginity. So the fuss, or as NemoUtopian called it, obsession, and it certainly can be a matter of obsession, about Mary's perpetual virginity stems primarily from two things. First, that Mary's virginity came to be regarded by the Church as inextricably bound up with the uniqueness of Jesus as the God-man. And second, that Christian communities going back at least as far as the time of Paul had come to view virgins, and I'll use Paul's words here, as concerned about the things of the Lord and holy in both body and spirit. Doubtless there's a good bit of baptized Greek and Roman mythology, among others, thrown into this too. Catholic teaching and apologetics often claim that these beliefs about the virginal conception, the virgin birth, and Mary's perpetual virginity have been the constant teaching of the Church from the start. As the organization Catholics United for the Faith puts it, quote, the Church has always professed that Mary was a virgin antepartum, in partu, et postpartum, that is, before birth, during birth, and after the birth of Christ, unquote. In fact, however, each of these beliefs developed over time, with the ones about Mary's virginity in partu and postpartum coming along and being developed many years, even centuries later. And not every member or even leader in the church bought all of it. For example, as Father McBrien notes in Catholicism, Jerome, the 4th century pioneer of Christian scripture scholarship, dismissed Mary's virginity in partu and postpartum as, quote, delirious nonsense. So I hope this little primer on the virginity of Mary from a Catholic perspective has been helpful. Thanks for the request, NemoUtopian, and thanks to everyone for watching.
So